Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story. It is Thursday. We're in the book of Matthew, chapter 20, verses 20 through 28. It says, Then the mother of James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to Jesus with her sons. She knelt respectfully to ask a favor. What is your request? He asked. She replied, In your kingdom, please let my two sons sit in places of honor next to you, one on your right, and the other on the left. But Jesus answered by saying to them, You don't know what you are saying. Are you able to drink from the bitter cup of suffering I am about to drink? Oh, yes, they replied, we're able. Jesus told them, You will indeed drink from my bitter cup, but I have no right to say who will sit on my right or my left. My Father who has prepared those places for the ones he has chosen. When the 10 other disciples heard what James and John had asked, they were indignant. But Jesus called them together. You know that the rulers of this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So they are in this, they're still in kingdom on earth mode. That's the mode they're in. And I don't know whether they get their mom to ask or if it's their mom's idea and she's, pushing them to it. We don't know. We don't get a lot of clarity here. But their mom's the one that asked for them on their behalf. And
as the only mother on this podcast, I'm just like imagining what it would be like if, my kids came to me and be like, Hey, our boss, could you go ask him for
yeah, but that's a thing now. Have you not read that? Like there are parents showing up at job interviews with college kids. Oh, it's a big thing.
I haven't read that.
No. Oh, yeah, you should. I read it in a business magazine. Like it's a big challenge in some places because parents are showing up. But it's more the parents, if I had to guess, than it is the kid. Because having watched like Little League Baseball and seen parents with teachers and those kind of things, it's usually the parents that are pushing my kid's better than, he deserves to be, whatever, Of course he wasn't the one who started the fight, whatever, the parents are, we went to helicopter parents to bulldozer parents is how they see it. So now they push everything out of the way to give, I can't imagine that, I can't imagine that being the case, but anyway, so there is this desire for them to have a seat of honor or power. And this is a tension, like this is a real present tension. Recently, we've had a conversation in our staff around a podcast that we had listened to together that has some of these elements in it, But the question I want to ask today is, how do you manage the tension and the temptation of power, even power that is obtained through serving? So Jesus says you're going to serve, but that doesn't mean you're not going to become famous or powerful or influential. That very well may be the very thing that makes you powerful or influential, So how do you manage that tension and the temptation that comes with power?
Well, I have people to help me with that, to bring me back in and say, you're not all that. I've actually had somebody to say, and I'm going to give you a true life example. In a conversation once, we were talking about the church where I'm currently serving. And we were just talking about one thing and another and how the church was growing. And this has been a while back. And in that conversation, they said to me, yeah, we absolutely need a really great children's program. We really need a new facility. We really need, and they went down this list, and they said because preaching alone is not going to do it. And they said to me, because you're just not that good. And I was waiting for the punchline. And they kept right on going. And I'm gonna be honest with you. At first, as the conversation was going on, I was like, "They're just messed up. They just who are they? But as I thought through it, I was like, the truth of the matter is that they're absolutely right. Is because when if you compare with others, there's thousands you say, oh, you don't even compare to, but that's not the issue. It's about serving in a particular role to accomplish a specific task. There are times when my wife will say to me, look, this may be a little difficult for you to hear, but, and offer a suggestion, or when you did that, or how you said that or responded to that. And I think that is one way, though, that we do need some folks, and that's probably going to be a small group of people that we are close enough to and have given permission to speak into us when they see things, whether it's our attitude or whether we're becoming too lofty, where we're not approachable, we're not available to people, etc., what that looks like. So that is one way to help manage that.
I think the checks and balances is what I thought of. The line from, I think, Animal Farm is absolute power corrupts absolutely. And, or maybe that's not originally for Animal Farm, I don't know.
That is a statement, though.
It is in Animal Farm.
I don't know that I would have attributed it to Animal Farm, but anyway, yeah.
But yeah, so it is a book about power, even though it's about animals. So there has to be those checks and balances, and I think our government has those checks and balances where there isn't one part of the government that should be more powerful than the other in the ideal situation. And I think that is what needs to be done when there is power. There needs to be people who can say no.
But isn't that very difficult?
Oh, yeah.
The more successful something is, the more difficult it is to address those
challenge
issues.
It or address. Yeah.
Because you don't want to derail it.
Yeah. Sure.
There's so much that goes into that. There's several things I'll say about this. One, I am fully convinced that in a ministry role, it is why I am specifically called to be a pastor and nothing else. Because I just had this conversation last night or yesterday with somebody, but I say it frequently. I used to travel and sing when I was younger. And everywhere you went, you were the star of the show, the center of attention. Nobody, you didn't get, you're not that good enough kind of comment, nobody, you typically didn't get too involved with people's lives. You just came in, everybody clapped for you, you left. That was it. And I've told people before, if I'd have continued, if I'd have made that my profession, I would have gone to hell.
Mm.
If that's theologically correct, I certainly wouldn't have had a spiritual life here on this earth. I told somebody recently, in a different conversation, they were asking me. He's an executive in the denomination that I came out of, and he said, "Do you ever regret not taking an administrative role?" I've been offered 3 while I was pastoring, and the truth is, had I taken any of those 3, some other things I don't have the fallout of some other things because it extracts me from the situation. I said, no, I don't regret it. I said, because I would have sold my soul to be their presiding bishop or whatever, general presbyter. I don't know what the title is they have now. I said, I would have sold my soul, because if I was going to get in, I was going to play the game until I got to the top. That's how I think, and the reason why, and God knows this, and I don't think I recognized this early on. This is just age, wisdom, and reflection. I can look back and see that in the pastoral world, there's always somebody to do that to you. It may be staff, it may be elders that may
Not that I've ever told you no about something.
well, not just no, but a correction, or
Because you've had some that I think felt it was their calling to do that on a weekly basis.
yes,
didn't
I have, yes, to correct something I said in my sermon. But there's always somebody to keep you humble.
Yeah.
There's always a situation to keep you humble. The very minute that you think, man, we're getting ready to scale, there's something that creeps up on you. You go, what's wrong with people? Like, why does that happen? But there's always, and so for me, because I'm self-aware of how my personality works and those kind of things, the environment that best suits me, that keeps that tension present, that there's always something there to stick a pin in your big head, if that's a good way to say it, your way's not always right, kind of thing, is a pastoral role. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't people who in pastoral roles that don't become tempted by power and abuse power.
Sure.
That's part of the conversation, and they end up with documentaries made about them, or on the news. It's unfortunate that's the case. As a matter of fact, recently, someone gave me a document that a church was requiring people to sign. And they handed it to you when you walked in the door. Like, first time visitors were getting this document. And if I pulled myself back, the truth is, much of what was said could be biblically supported. Much of. Some of it was, we'd have to talk through this, There were simple things like, you support, I can't say part of what they've said because it would kind of give away a type of church it was, but you support X doctrine, which is based on the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, and there was one other that was particularly influential on that style of church. I get that. We want people to support our theological statements. But there were other things that, if you disagree with the direction or leadership of the church, you will speak privately to an elder and not discuss it among the members. And, it's just some other things that were and what was happening. So what I know it to be, this was a fairly new church that was a part of another church. These people led, and it was an overreaction to some things that they had just experienced, and they were trying to keep them from happening again. But you can't force those kind of things. All those kind of things put you in a place of, if the word is supreme power, earlier this week we talked about how could somebody kill babies, all the babies 2 years and under. We read stories. There's a story of a pastor of a church, and literally he's in prison now and will never get out. But hundreds of abuse cases where the same line was used over and over again. I'm the one in authority, and whatever I request of you, you have to do. Like, that can happen. Power left unchecked creates abuses. And so we all have to be aware of it. We can't say all fame and all power is bad and all leaders are bad. That's terrible. But we also have to understand that it can easily corrupt, and you have to manage that tension. The interesting thing here is that they didn't get kicked out of the group because they asked the question. They just got scolded,
mocked a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, made fun of. Yeah,
I can imagine the other disciples being like, "Why did your mom do that?"
Right. Well, it says they were mad. I mean, they were angry,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
about it.
And I can just imagine, like, the next time they're, like, in a conversation, like, what are you going to do? Call your mom again?
Where's your mama at? Yeah.
You know, he reminded them though too that there's a price to be paid. It's just not about the fame or the position, you know, or the perks that go along. There's a great cost associated with achieving anything significant that might become the temptation. And he was asking the question. He said, you know, are you able to do that? Are you ready? Do you even know what you're talking about? You know, we've had these conversations before where similar where people say, sure wish I had your life, sure wish I had your position, or you know, and the answer is no, you don't. You've no idea. You know, the pain, the effort, the strife, the sacrifice that's gone into being there. So you don't even know. But being drawn to that is an easy thing. We're talking about it from the inside, being that person, but I think it's easy for folks on the outside to see those glimpses and want to be there.
But just in the last week, I had a very similar conversation with somebody because they called me on the phone. They asked me what I was doing, and at that moment, I was in Toronto, Canada. Oh, I just wish I had your life. And I said, so where were you 2 nights ago when I took a call at 3:15 in the morning while I was here? Do you want that?
Yeah.
You know? Well, I was just playing, you know, but we do think from the outside it's going to be better than it really is. And then we get it. Because the truth is, let's say Jesus said, okay, yeah, come on. Y'all going to be. And they were, let's be honest, they were 2 of his favorites. Right. There's no, like, there's a distinct difference between Peter, James, and John and the rest of the bunch. They go everywhere Jesus goes. They're named specific. As a matter of fact, like one of the stories that would have ticked me off if I was one of the other 9 is when he goes to the home of the girl who's dead. The whole bunch of them go, but when he goes into the room with her, he only takes Peter, James, and John. The rest of them are stuck on the outside. Like like I would have been upset, right? So there is a distinct difference. Do you think they had a reason to believe they had a right? And right now, the thing that's running through my mind, clearly they're one of the favorite 3. They're closest to Jesus. But am I wrong that they're the first 2 called?
They certainly would have been in the early, They
would have been in the first 2 or 3.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm trying to remember where Peter falls in that order, but you know, they get called, you know, right along because they're in that same. So did they feel like, okay, I've earned this right? Do you think there was any of that in their thought process? It wasn't just about power. It was we've been with Jesus the longest.
Yeah, from the beginning.
I deserve the promotion.
Yeah. So Peter and Andrew, in Matthew 4, Peter and Andrew were first. And then a little farther up the shore, he saw 2 brothers, James and John.
Okay, so they were in the top 4. They were just wanting to move to the top 2.
And I think part of the other conversation that we had about power and when we were discussing it with staff was there's a difference between grasping and looking for that power than when it comes naturally and when your church grows or you get elected because of the good things you've done for whatever. So I think there is a difference between grasping at that power, like sending your mom to ask or, you know, for more power than when that comes naturally.
Any horror stories about power?
Well, we read a lot about horror stories of power, whether it be political, church. I think through the years, some of the worst stories about power have come from within homes. When you find out where there's been an individual, usually I would say it was the man, but sometimes it's not, who had or wielded absolute authority and power to the point that those people were broken and oppressed,
quietly abusive.
Yes, yeah, and those are sad. And my experience with those have been people who were in the church, though, you know, and so which to me compounds that.
I had a situation. We were having a conversation with the pastor, and I said, look, this is the issue I have with what you have done. And he scolded me so bad. I was an adult. And he was like, you do not say that to the servant of, like, and just laid into me in a public place. And it was ridiculous. And so I think I've seen what that power does. And here's the thing. The church that he was at was a dying church, too. And he was just grasping onto that power.
Well, one of the dangers in church is we use Scripture to support certain abuses.
And use it out of context.
Don't touch not mine anointed.
Right.
Don't
right.
Do my prophets no harm.
Right. Those kind of things. And when I hear somebody use that line, it like alarm bells, red flags go up. What?
I'm trying not to laugh, but I quoted that to my wife one time just for that very reason, just to provoke her response, and it got one. She helped me get my refocus.
I don't. And I know this isn't a leadership podcast, but our situation isn't perfect. Like there are times I see. There was recently a situation that I didn't catch until after it was over with, like that somebody was pulling rank, or trying to pull rank or go around or not do something. But for the most part, my experience among our staff is, and even leadership, for the most part, this like I said, it's not perfect. We can speak to one another and challenge one another without having to well, I'm the pastor. You got to do what I say, because the older I get, the more I believe leadership has to be earned. And if you have to force it, somebody is in the wrong place. Well, thank you for joining us today on this edition of One Single Story. We hope you'll be back tomorrow as we finish up our conversation on the book of Matthew.